Hello everybody and welcome to the Radiator Arms, recorded for the very first time in an actual pub. And so we want to say a very big thank you to Dave and Kat for allowing us to perch in a corner of one of our favourite watering holes and to talk to you today. In this episode, it is just myself, JayEmm, and my good buddy Ant
from Sports and Touring. Hello.
And we are talking about track days. For some, the best bit about having a car. For others, something they've heard of, know a little bit about, are kind of afraid of, and just don't really know what to do with. And for many others, something in between.
I think there's a lot of people that have never actually heard of the idea of a track day, because there are people that I meet and they say, what's the point in owning a car that's that fast? You can't drive it anywhere in the UK at its top speed, or you can't drive any faster than 70 miles an hour. And I always like to say, well, actually, there's quite a few places you can.
In fact, I can draw a connection with a video that we've been filming this very week, because this week we've had the pleasure of the rather amazing Nissan GT-R Nismo. And I recall way back when, in 2007, the GT-R had a really cool feature where it, like most Japanese cars, in the home market anyway, was limited to 112 mile an hour. But it had GPS and it knew when it was at a track.
Yep, and then the limiter would be removed and off it could go.
That was space age in 2007.
It was, and actually I remember Jeremy Clarkson tested that, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up hurting his neck.
He did, yeah.
Yeah. Probably the extra weight of the sunglasses he was wearing because of the eye infection.
That's correct. Yeah. Was it Fuji, I think he went to?
He did, yeah.
Oh, very jealous.
Yeah.
Very, very jealous of that, honestly. That looked like a really, really cool thing to get to do.
But what we're going to be talking about is these track days. What is the best about track days? What's the worst about track days? And what is our ideal track day?
Now, how many track days have you actually done? Because I know you've spent a lot of time at tracks.
Yes.
But how many have you done?
Technically, in my own cars, 2.
Really?
However, I've done lots of track experiences where other firms provide the car and maybe an instructor, and then you go around the track. And I've driven quite a few. I've done Thruxton, Brands Hatch, Silverstone, Donington.
Love Donington.
Yeah, a few others. So was it last year I did Donington in a Caterham.
So cool.
Which thankfully was provided by Caterham, and they let me and my son borrow that for the day and blast around Donington circuit. I've also done the Nissan Race Academy, which for me was 2 days, but for the majority of people involved, basically 270 of them, it was a 1-day experience, and for me and 30 others, it was a 2-day experience, because that was who made it through to the finals. And that was phenomenal. That was just an all-round amazing thing. Then I've done Thruxton in a 458 and a Formula Renault, Brands Hatch in something that I've forgotten now.
Were they like experience day things, or what were they as part of?
Yeah, generally full days. Oh,
okay.
And what's the PalmerSport in
now
Bedford?
PalmerSport is fantastic. Now, I think it's worth explaining to the people that maybe aren't so familiar with this, what a track day actually is, because there's a lot of similar sounding things and similar looking things, but a track day is something quite specific. Now, as you might imagine, it involves a track and a car, or potentially a motorbike, though very rarely at the same time. Certainly not if things are going well. And this year they've also now stopped motorbikes joining the Nürburgring tourist fart sessions.
Right, well that makes sense. I don't think it's a good idea having motorbikes and cars on track at the same time.
It really isn't, and especially when you look at the variety of things going on at the TF sessions, I think probably for the best. So the idea of a track day in concept is very, very simple. You go to a track which has been rented typically by a third-party company, sometimes is offered out by the owners of the track. So we've got Motorsport Vision, MSV, here in the UK, and they've got Snetterton, Cadwell, Alton, Donington, Brands Hatch, Probably others that I've got. And Bedford, of course, is another big one. And basically, you pay some money and you can drive your car around the track with other people. By definition, it is explicitly non-competitive. It is not a race, as they are keen to tell you at all points in time. The checkered flag simply means that the session or the day is over and not that you've won. Now, you also find sometimes experience days. So these are the ones you often tended to see, you know, back in the days where there was Smiths and it wasn't TJ Jones or whatever the heck they're calling it now. Where basically you buy it and it's like 150 quid, 160 quid or whatever, you know, drive a Ferrari or drive a Nissan GTR or drive a Porsche or whatever. And those are not track days.
No, I've done something a little bit more than that. Because there is something that's in between where you are buying an experience day as opposed to experience drive, and it is literally the whole day, but it's more like about 1,600 quid for the day.
Yeah.
They supply a bunch of different cars that you get to drive around the circuit, usually with an instructor.
Yeah, now the experience day things, the lower end ones, I tend not to recommend to people because I personally believe I've attended them and I've even done one effectively. I just don't think they represent very good value for money, particularly if you're somebody that say, you know, this is how you want to get to experience a car you've always dreamed about. You know, maybe you've always lusted after a 911 Turbo, a GTR, a Mercedes C63, whatever. By and large, it tends to be often at an airfield or somewhere like that. It's generally not a proper track. No. They'll have some cones out and you'll do a prescribed lap. Maybe they'll take you out for a few laps in another car that's not the one you've paid to be there in. And you might get something like 3 laps in one of these cars, which is often maybe about 3 or 4 miles of driving. And there'll be fairly strict limits on how hard you can drive, how high you can rev the car, what you can do with it. And ultimately, with most of these cars, I would say at the end of it, you will not have experienced what these cars can do.
No. And I can speak at least with some second-hand experience because my son, Damani, who has been on the channel and on this podcast before, he actually used to work at one of these experience drive centres. And let's just say the more powerful cars, people were basically instructed to go very, very quickly from first to second, so very much short shifting second, then get into third, and then just leave the gears alone. And then just drive around at a relatively slow pace and forget 3 or 4 miles. And literally, it will be like about 10 minutes on track, and that's it. And they won't be driving very fast. And they're literally generally told, keep the pace of the cars down, because if anyone crashes one of these cars, it's very expensive to fix. And to make that worse, a lot of these people were given a gift that might have been bought 6 months ago. So when they show up for their actual day, there's no money coming in on that day. That money was collected 6 months, maybe even 9 months ago. So they're always relying on people buying tickets today to pay for today's rides and then worrying about paying for tomorrow's rides. So they're always cutting corners on things like tyres and you know, telling the drivers to take it easy. Even Damani, one of his jobs was actually to do hot laps, and he was told that he needs to just calm the hot laps down. He's like, I'm not even trying. I'm like
tepid laps.
Yeah, he's like, I'm at 7/10 anyway, and they're like, yeah, well, you need to make it further down. Trouble is, he's a former racing driver, so his 7/10 is like most people's 11/10.
Yeah, you can't tell racing drivers to slow down. Really, it's not in their way, especially when they're in a car they know can go much faster.
Yeah. But there's another thing you can do with track days where you can also rent cars. So Caterham, for example, they provide rental cars. So you can book a car for a regular track day and they'll show up with the car, prepped, ready to go. You can go and drive it around the track and then take it away afterwards. So it's still a track day, but with cars supplied. And that's the kind of thing that I prefer to do.
Oh,
personally.
absolutely. And to be honest, anybody that comes to me and says, look, I haven't got a sporty car or whatever, but I want to have a go on track, what do? The one thing I recommend to them is the PalmerSport day at Bedford Autodrome. Brilliant. Now, I got to do it about 15 years ago, actually. I think it was my 21st birthday. And that was fantastic. And actually, I think we should organise a Radiator Arms day out at some point and go and do that, because I think that'd be great to do. And if you watching or listening would like to join us for that, then we have got a few things planned. Do send us an email, and that address is landlord@theradiatorarms.com. Yeah, and the thing with the PalmerSport Day, what makes it to me just worth doing is, we've already explained, you can pay easily like 200 to 300 quid to pootle around in what is often a kind of dog-eared Ferrari or something that really isn't a very good car. And I've seen also with some of these companies advertising cars, and if you know your car, you'll look at it and you'll go, that is not the car they're pretending it is.
Yeah.
That's not an S. That's a normal one with an S bumper on it or something. And it's very, very disingenuous. I am sure that not every company out there is like that. But every single one of these companies out there that I've dealt with is like that.
Yep.
PalmerSport, completely different.
Yep.
It's basically a corporate day in essence. So it's a lot more money. The last time I checked, it's over £1,000.
Actually, there is a half-day experience you can do, which I did last year, thanks to my son, also for my 21st birthday. That was from lunchtime until the end of the day, and we got to drive a Caterham, a BMW M4 that had been track prepped, a Ginetta race car. That was very cool. Sequential box,
Nice.
full caged race car. The instructors there push you. They make you go fast. However late you think you can brake, they're like, no, you're braking too early. Just don't brake until I tell you. And you're coming into this corner, you're like, okay, surely I should have hit the brakes by now. No, anytime now. Surely now. And then they're like, brake, harder. And you're like, whoa, and you're literally on the toes of the car going into the bend. It's brilliant.
It's fantastic. If you want to know what a car can do,
Oh, yeah.
like that's the way to do it. Yeah, when I did it, it was the M3, the V8, which was relatively new at the time. There's a Formula Palmer, I think they called it, like a single-seater type thing.
Yep.
There was a two-seater thing as well. That was terrifying. There was a go-kart. Actually, the go-kart, the go-kart was the one I couldn't handle.
Really?
Literally, having spent most of the day, because there's different groups, and obviously it's a bit random which order you do stuff in. Having just come out of like a low-slung, proper single-seater where you're cocooned in the thing, wrapped in with helmet and everything on, to then get on what is effectively a school chair with some scaffolding around it and not even a seatbelt, like my brain just went, no, this is stupid. What are you doing? Like, if you hit something, you're just going to go flying. Like, I couldn't do it. But every single one of these cars, you are absolutely full tilt. I remember so vividly, because it was really my first experience of driving a car hard. The first one I did was the Caterham. And they do a couple of bits of the Caterham. One is on track, and then one is basically a drift kind of thing.
Handling circuit, yeah.
Yeah, which I was useless at. But the on-track bit, I remember so vividly. The first thing I did was, in a bend, I tried to feed the wheel, because as a road driver, like that's
what you do.
That's what you do. And I remember the guy panicked so much. He's like, no. So there was that. But also, there's one corner, I couldn't tell you which corner it was and which of the circuits at Bedford it was, but basically, you didn't just take, a bit of curb. The curb was on the other side of the car. Basically, there was a little bit where it's not really grass, it's that kind of like diamond matte stuff with a bit of grass poking through it. Just drive over the top of it.
Yeah.
They would just be no, straight line this. And I think all the instructors were having a little bit of a competition with each other to see who could get the client, which had the best time. And of course, Bedford also has got an incredible roster of they're very keen to tell you all the people that used to teach there. Because for a lot of racing drivers, it's a good way for them to make some money while they're trying to build their career up.
Yeah, and a little bit of extra cash on the side.
Yeah, so you could get educated by the Lewis Hamilton of tomorrow. And I do believe he was one of their instructors, I think, maybe. No, was he not? No. Someone very famous. Formula One drivers have definitely instructed there.
Yeah, there's been one or two that have been through there.
So that's that. But that's, I think, in the UK, almost unique. And the only thing of its type that I really know about. But it's very well known, it's very good. If you want to do it, do it. And if you want to do it with us, tell us. But track days, different thing.
It is a different thing. And one of the things that's different is that all the wear and tear is going onto your car. I've known people who've gone to the track in the morning with a nice fresh set of pads and tyres and come away in the evening barely legal on their tyres and in desperate need of some new pads and sometimes new discs.
Yeah, and a long time ago, I had a genius idea to buy a track car. And I used what I knew at the time was flawed logic, which is that I bought a hot as heck supercharged E92 BMW M3. And this thing was fast, seriously fast, way faster than I was and am as a driver. But my logic was, my local circuits were Brands Hatch and Snetterton. I took it to Brands Hatch. It was the worst day of my entire life because it was about 2 degrees. I was on Cup 2s that had barely any life left in them. No, 888s with no life left in them. And Brands Hatch Indy doesn't really have a straight. So if you're there with a bunch of guys in hatchbacks, then you are going to get absolutely annihilated and your tyres will never get warm. There was another guy there in a car virtually identical to mine. I saw him go off into the gravel, and as I'd driven my car to the circuit, I figured, I do need to drive this home, so did that. Snetterton, however, it fared much better because Snetterton is a power circuit and you don't need any skill just to put your foot down. And my theory was, and this did prove somewhat true, I knew that the good drivers would be much quicker than me in the bends. I, however, was a bad driver with lots of power, but also a little bit of common sense. And the thing with Snetterton is you have got, especially now it's got what I still call the new circuit, but it's not new at all, more technical sections on it. I knew on the straight, I could build myself a little bit of a gap between the cars behind me who would kind of start to catch up in the bends, but not to the point where they want to get past you. And that would mean that you got this kind of like, you know, accordion thing going on where over the course of a lap, the time isn't hideously different. So you're not just getting past like every 2 seconds. And I did enjoy it. And I did do a few days with that car. But like you said, I realized I was starting to go through consumables. And I started doing some maths and I worked out, well, hang on a minute, a set of tyres is near as damn it £1,000. The brake pads were the ones that terrified me because it had big aftermarket brakes on it and we couldn't even find exactly which pads they were, but we figured if we were lucky, they were £700 an axle. I wouldn't go out on track very long or for very many sessions, but I'd still do 2 tanks of fuel in a day, and that's before you actually get to the circuit. If it's anywhere further than about 2 or 3 hours away, I would not want to drive up there on the day. I'd want to go up there the night before because my idea of a fun day doesn't start at 4 a.m. So I did some sort of quick cigarette packet maths and realised that each of these track days was probably costing me optimistically £600 to £700.
Yeah, and that's the thing. This is one of the reasons why I've always preferred to work with a company that supplies the cars because they built that into the price. It's fixed. I know how much it's going to cost. I pay my insurance waiver so that if anything happens to the car on track, hopefully it wouldn't be my fault, but someone else could crash into it or something could go wrong and the front wheel could fly off or something could snap and cause the car to lose control. I don't have to come away from that day worrying about how much it's going to cost me. And that for me is why I've always gone down that path, because even then with the consumables, actually it works out to be pretty good value for money, and generally their cars are built to take that punishment day in, day out.
Yeah, and especially if you can get a friend or two along, share the cost. A lot of these companies will often happily throw in an instructor as well, and if you've never done any track day stuff, trust me, park the ego, get an instructor. They are amazing. Now, I'm a little bit weird and I'm very willing to acknowledge this, but the way that I work on track, I know some people like to just go out first session with the instructor. Some people just refuse outright to get one, and instructors are a bit odd because they do come in many different varieties, some of whom are the best people you'll ever meet, some of whom are really abrasive and you wish you never see ever again, but that I think is just people. But what I like to do is go out on track, especially if it's a new track to me, do like maybe a session, maybe 2. There'll be some parts of it which naturally sort of start to work and you get. At other parts, I mean, like there's a couple of corners, at least at Snetterton, I know, where I could be there half a day and every single time I would turn in what I know is the wrong blooming place, but I couldn't work out where the right place was. So then what you do is, and this is the way my brain works, my brain has to go, you need help. So then when you go out with the instructor, and you go, right, I really need help here, here, and here. And then they'll go, oh, well, actually what you're doing is you're probably braking too early, leave it another 30 yards, find on track your marker point, and then turn in here. And then when they say that, you go, oh, blimey. And then the most amazing thing I find happens, which is that you go faster and you feel safer. Because when you're then using the whole track and you're doing things like their way, you suddenly go, actually, crikey, I was making my own life really difficult there, wasn't I?
Well, that's the reason why if I am new to a particular track, I prefer to have the instructor go out with me in the first session, show me the correct lines, and then give me space and time to just practice and try and actually achieve those lines. And then get them to come back and correct any bad habits that I might have picked up or things that I might have misunderstood. But each to their own. You have to figure out what's good for you. I would say if you've never done any time on track, get the instructor to go out with you for the first time. That's going to be the better way. And then you'll also have an extra pair of eyes, keeping an eye on your mirrors, and then helping you understand, what to be looking out for and how to let people pass you. Because you can't just pass people, or other people can't just pass you whenever they want. There is an etiquette to getting past people or letting people pass on track.
Yeah, absolutely. And on really, really good track days, I treat it more as a social event. And back in the day, part of the reason I sort of stopped it was I actually realised I enjoyed the time off track, talking to people, looking at other cars, stuff like that, as much as being on track. Yeah. Except when I was on track, I was really worried about what's going to happen to my car. What am I going to do? Am I going to be good enough? This, that, and the other. And that sort of stuff shouldn't really, enter into your mind. No. And I think if your aim when you go to a track day is to be the fastest person there, don't go. Just don't.
And if you insist on going, let us know so we know to not be there that day.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was talking about in terms of etiquette wasn't so much what happens off the track, it was more about on the track. So you don't do overtaking on a track day if you've never been on a track day before. What you do is you pass on a very specific side, which varies from track to track, but will often be on the left-hand side for a clockwise circuit and on the right-hand side for an anti-clockwise circuit. And it's always by invitation. And the idea is that if someone's behind you who's faster, what you do is you, in some tracks, indicate to the side you're moving to, then let the person pass. There are 1 or 2 sessions I've been to where you move to the side to let the person pass, then indicate to tell them what side to pass on.
That just sounds
that
really
confused me. That was at Silverstone once, in a session that was at Silverstone, and they said that. I was like, are you sure that's what you want us to do?
That sounds like somebody's heard the instructions and got them muddled up. And then, so in the States, they like the point-by. So you basically, you pull over and you just stick a hand out the window and basically wave them past, which feels very heroic, I have to say, even though you are letting a faster car go past. The main thing, basically, the reason that you do that is because this tells the faster car behind you, they're there. And the reason why, if you're the faster car, you don't go past, even when you think maybe you could, is because the person in front might not know that you're there, either because they've got poor visibility, they're concentrating on something else, perhaps there is a technical issue with their car that you are unaware of, or maybe they're just an idiot. And these are all things you don't want to have to deal with while you're approaching what could be quite a high closing speed. Tracks are funny things, and one of the reasons I don't really film on track is because you do go a lot faster than on the road.
Yep.
But it feels a lot slower.
Yep. It can do. It can.
Yeah.
Do. I don't know. The other day when I was out in the Gallardo, this is one of the times I have taken one of my own cars on track. Last year I took out the R8 as well. That definitely felt faster on the track than on the road.
Yeah, for sure. But you were going at quite some lick. Had you gone around there at 60, 70 mile an hour, it would have felt
slower,
walking.
Yeah.
In fact, my dad used to do a lot of motorbike racing, and he said one of the biggest problems that you have is if you're unfortunate enough to come off your bike, which invariably at some point you will, when you're sliding down the track, you have a tendency to think you're basically stopped when you're not.
Right.
So people come off their bike at, I think Dad came off his bike at 110, 120 or something like that. But if you just slide, your leathers do their job and you're okay. The problem is you get to 30 mile an hour and you think you're at walking speed and you're not, and you try and get up. And then you tumble down the road, and that's when you hurt yourself.
That's when you get your broken wrists and your busted ankles.
Yep. Or in my dad's case, 3 broken collarbones over a career. Yeah.
How many collarbones did he have?
He broke one, broke the other one, then re-broke the first one.
Right.
Yeah, that was quite unfortunate. Bike track days, in principle, very similar to car. And my first time ever on track was on a motorbike.
Oh, wow.
It was with the Ron Haslam Race School, which nowadays, sadly, is closed down, but was a really great experience for me and for many others. And it was my first ever time on track, my first time also riding a big bike, which was a CB500. we did talk about this a little bit in a previous episode where we discussed biking, but I remember, I don't think anybody ever forgets their first time on track, particularly Donington. Donington, I think you can call a big boy track.
Oh, yeah.
Like, getting out of the pits and onto that track, the thing I remember, first off, is how smooth it is. Secondly, how big it is.
Oh, it's huge, yeah.
Like, and when you're on a motorbike as well, it almost felt like walking down, like it's almost like what, 4 or 5 lanes wide equivalent. Like it's big.
Yeah. It's pretty big. I mean, obviously Silverstone's even bigger.
Yeah.
But in a different kind of way. This Donington's big in a more windy sort of way.
Yeah, Silverstone I actually think is boring.
Yeah. Unless you're in something ridiculously fast.
Yeah. Like, I know the F1 drivers apparently like it, but they also go around at a fair lick.
Yeah.
And yeah, to me, just no. One thing I really love as well, right, and I think this should be like promoted more, is I just love being able to say I have shared the same piece of tarmac as some of these legendary drivers, or been to the places that you've seen on TV for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm on holiday and I'm going even remotely close to a track, I will stop and take at least one photo of me or the car or whatever. When I was away with Chris recently, where we recorded some episodes, we went to Hockenheim. That was really cool. Obviously went and saw the Nürburgring as well, which is, you know, amazing and hallowed ground. But honestly, a track I have less than zero, I think, interest in taking my own car around. But if you did want to do the Nürburgring, and if anybody wants to do the Nürburgring, personally, if I was to do it again, I'd save up my money. And there's a whole bunch of companies out there that do it. Get a passenger lap.
Yeah. Like what are they called? Ring taxis usually?
Yeah, the ring taxi. And top tip, money saving advice here. Chris will be proud. Did you know Genesis now run a ring taxi?
Genesis who?
Genesis, the car company.
Really?
Yeah, it's not Phil Collins.
But I forgot that it's a Chinese car manufacturer.
No, it's Korean.
Korean. Okay.
Yeah, it's the upmarket brand of Kia and Hyundai.
Ah, that's
Yeah,
it.
that Genesis.
Genesis.
That one. Yeah. They do a ring taxi, and it's about 120 quid for a car, which has got several spaces in it, and all the money goes to charity.
Oh, I like that. Oh,
Yeah.
I want to do that just because.
Right? Yeah. So that's just a really nice thing. And I think the limitation is it's only available on the weekends, but that's when a lot of people will be there anyway. But that to me is like, nobody's talking about it, but it's out there, they do it. And I just think it's really cool. And you know as well as I do that I think people will look at it and go, oh, it's just like a, you know, normal sort of ordinary saloon car. You're like, no, a normal ordinary saloon car with a proper driver behind it going around a track like that will do things you didn't think it was possibly capable of.
100%.
So that's very, very cool.
You can also rent cars though.
Yeah.
So when my son and I, well, we were all in Germany, but at that part of the trip, it was just me and my son. We went to a company called Rent4Ring, and we found them to be absolutely fantastic. We actually went to various rental companies just to sort of speak to people, see what they were like, and just get a feel for what was going on. And some of them were like, there's the prices. And these guys were like, oh, and we can do this, we do this, we do this. And hey, let us know what time you want to come back and we'll sort something out for you. They were just really, really good at Rent4Ring. So I would say that they're a good place to go. The other thing I thought was good about them was the excesses on the insurance, which I thought was much more reasonable. Because for the most part, if you do rent a car from some of these places, there isn't an insurance waiver that gets rid of the full excess. It will generally halve the excess, but it won't get rid of it.
Yeah.
So we ended up deciding to go out in a Mini Cooper S, which we shared between us. We bought 2 laps, a lap each, where we get to drive with an instructor. And I would say that 1 lap with an instructor is probably better than 5 laps by yourself. Again, they push you. And yeah, the excess on the car was like something like 6,000 euros. They don't demand that you hand over your credit card and pre-authorize it or anything like that. They just kind of, just sign here as, you know, we trust you, go out. But of course, if you then do bin the car, then you still got to give them 6,000 euros if you paid the waiver. Now, in our case, they actually said to us, well, because you're going out with the instructor, and they said, I'll be honest with you, we just don't think it's worth you paying the extra money for the waiver because you've got an extra pair of eyes. He's going to be telling you where to position the car on the track. And he said, it sounds like you guys kind of know what you're talking about and you sound sensible. So as long as you just do what he says, you'll be fine. And we were like, all right then. So instead of a 6,000 excess, we risked a £12,000 excess, sorry, 12,000 euro excess. I mean, these were track prepped Mini Cooper S's,
Yeah.
you know, whatever the latest version is. And the instructor was absolutely fantastic. He had the mirrors all set up for him. He was pushing hard. I mean, I could feel the car rotating as you're sort of going around the bends on the sort of off-camber sections where you go down, and the car sliding and everything. After I spoke to him at the end, I said, you pushed quite hard there. So yeah, first couple of corners, I knew what you were capable of, so I wanted to make sure that you knew what you were capable of, and he just really pushed us really hard. So rent for ring at Nürburgring, absolutely great bunch of guys.
And wherever you go, if you've got an instructor, there's only one thing you have to do. Exactly what they tell you. And in those first few corners, every instructor will be judging you, and everything that they tell you to do, they will be judging you on whether you do that or not. Because if they tell you brake, first time round, they've probably built in a little bit of wiggle room of their own that maybe you aren't quite as responsive as you would like to think you are. But if after a couple of laps or so on a normal track, they see you do exactly what they say, they will push you. And you will get more, and you know, they will build and build and build, and yeah, you will just come out of it thinking, like you say, I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah.
Like,
you find out that actually your driving capabilities are much better than you realised. And that for me was one of the best things to come out of that experience.
yeah, it's so good. In Britain, we're also so lucky because we have an incredible density of really good tracks.
Yeah.
I can't think of anywhere else in the world where you have this many good quality tracks in such close proximity to one another.
Yeah, I mean, think about, you know, England is quite a small place and you've got quite a few just in England alone.
Yeah, I mean, we have 3 Formula One circuits that have hosted a race in modern memory and that are still active in more or less the configuration that they were when they raced there.
Donington,
Yep.
Brands Hatch, and Silverstone.
Yep. Although technically Aintree you can't drive around anymore, I think. But you know, you've also got so many other cracking circuits. In Scotland, just a little bit shorter because you've got Knockhill, and that's effectively it. But if you follow stuff like the touring cars or whatever, they'll be going to all different places, and basically every single track you've seen a car racing at, you can then drive your car on. And one thing I would also say, you used to see this a lot more, and I don't see it quite as much these days. I used to see airfield driving days quite a bit, where basically, as you might imagine, they've taken an airfield and made a track out of cones. Now, in some ways, you might think this is a great idea because unlike a circuit, the runoff is just more road, you know. But the problem I found with these days is that the surface is completely different to a racetrack. So you don't have as much grip, but what you've also got is a more abrasive surface. So really exercise caution, because if you go to one of those days and you start driving your car hard, keep an eye on your tyres.
Dunsfold is technically one of those places, i.e. the Top Gear test track.
They do driving days there, don't they?
Yeah, people do rent it out for some driving experiences. The only thing is you can't do the Top Gear test track because it's a figure of 8.
Crosses over, it's a destruction derby track.
Yeah, there's a crossover, so there's only one car on track allowed at any one time.
Oh, I would like to do a lap of the Top Gear track at some point though, like just to say, like, I've done it.
Well, if anyone here happens to know anyone at Dunsfold and wants to make that happen for his next birthday, let me know.
Please. It'll be nice. Get you flowers and everything, or a cake.
But look, track days. There's lots of good things about track days, some bad things about some track days. But what is our perfect track day? What does that look like?
I spent a lot of time thinking about this because I've had a lot of negative experiences on tracks. And typically it's with poor track etiquette. And I think it's also a result of the fact that, and I feel very, very much for them, to actually try and make any kind of money, track day organisers have to put as many cars on track as they can. And I actually did very briefly run a track experience company. We only hosted about half a dozen events or so, but it did give me an insight into the world that they run. And if you want to do a day at somewhere like even Snetterton, which I think a lot of people wouldn't class as like a high-end circuit, just to rent that can be well over £10,000. And if you're going to host a day there, you of course have to charge a price that people are going to be willing to pay. And this means that, if someone there is hosting a day that's £189, you'd struggle to charge £199, let alone 250, 300 quid or whatever. But there are generally, of course, limitations to how many people you can have. And most of the time you look at it and you go, well, hang on a minute. We can have, let's just say, for example, 60 cars somewhere. You might find that you only start making profit once you've got 50 cars there. And I feel so bad for these guys because it's so difficult for them to actually make any money. The downside is that what this means is there are lots and lots of cars there. And on certain circuits, this can be a problem. Snetterton isn't too bad because it's quite a big circuit. It's got big straights and things.
Because there's always limits as to how many cars can be on track at any one time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So they'll keep you queuing up in the pit lane until one of them comes in, then they'll let one out.
Yeah. Brands Hatch, for some reason, whenever I've been there, doesn't feel like it's got that limit. And I could have sworn I could have done a whole lap walking on top of all of the Clios that were going past me. And again, it very much depends. In fact, do you know what? One of the best track days I ever had was at Snetterton in, I think, January or February. And the weather was predicted to be horrendous. Anybody that's been at Snetterton will know that even in the middle of August, it's freezing because it's so windy. And it was predicted to be, I think, 2 degrees, 1 or 2 degrees. It was not going to be a nice day. And it was Snetterton, but it was quite a cheap day. It was like, I think it was like 99 quid or something daft. And it was with Open Track, who've always been pretty good when I've done their days, and they give free photography and stuff like that, and free tuition as well, which is really cool.
That's good.
And I'd booked to go on it, and I turned up. I booked a garage as well, which I always did, so I had somewhere to hide if it rained. And when I got there, I think a lot of people have booked the day nice and cheap, looked at the weather report and gone, nah, for 99 quid, I'm staying at home, I'm not bothering. And the thing is, it was actually quite still, very unusual for Snetterton. And it was cold, but it dried out. So it was a bit brisk, but there was heat on the track eventually, certainly later in the morning. There was no one there.
Brilliant.
It was amazing. I felt like I had Snetterton basically to myself. There must have been like 20 cars there or something like that. It was amazing. And it was so much fun because you weren't worrying about who was behind you. You weren't panicked about, oh my God, whose way am I in? Who's trying to get past me in a much quicker, more powerful, more downforcey car, whatever. And so I really enjoyed that. Unfortunately, I had a few other days where I just didn't because, again, there are too many cars on track. And they used to do car track days in sessioned format where you would have, novice, intermediate, advanced, and then sometimes there'd be a race category as well. That became unpopular quite a few years ago. So nowadays it's basically, just go out when you can.
Open pit lane.
Yeah, open pit lane. And on the one hand, it's a very good thing because it means you're no longer feeling a pressure to go out because you've only got 20 minutes every hour to get out. The downside is that this means you are out with anyone. And you might have legitimate race cars with race drivers in your group and you might be on your very first track day.
Yeah.
So I did a few days, and of course, I'm very lucky with what I do. I got invited to go and do days and drive people's cars and things like that, but I usually decline it, partly because trying to film on a track day is a nightmare, but also because, we said earlier, if you do film it, it doesn't look like you're going very fast, even if you are, and my insurance would cover me to drive someone's car on the road, but it wouldn't cover me on track, and I wouldn't have felt comfortable on a public track day with the huge risk factor involved that it wouldn't be something that I'd done, but somebody else could do something, and somebody else could just pile into the side of a car, and I'm on the hook.
And that's something. If you've never done a track day before, maybe a lot of you have, but for those who haven't, your insurance definitely does not cover you on track. And generally speaking, you can get track day insurance, but sometimes it could be hard to get cover unless you've done a certain number of track days. There are insurance companies that will include a certain number of track days in your car insurance. However, you usually have to declare what those track days are and they have to approve them, usually, in my personal
and isn't it Castle Combe for some of them is basically a no-go?
No, it's a no-go, yeah.
I've never done Castle Combe.
No.
I've never even been. And it's got the most crashed corner in Britain, doesn't it?
Allegedly.
Is that Quarry?
I don't remember the corner name, but
Yeah.
it is a big, fast entry corner.
Yeah.
But there's a little bump, and if you hit that at the wrong angle, that's it.
You're off.
You get fired off. But you can get insurance for track days, but it is worth just being very clear about what the excess is, because usually it's between 10 and 15% of the value of your car. So if you're taking out a £100,000 car, your excess could be between 10 and 15,000 pounds, depending on what policy you've got. Some people just take the risk. And this is, for me, why I tend to go with rental cars, because they provide the insurance. And if someone crashes into me, it doesn't work like on the road.
No.
It's basically, if I crash the car, it's on me. If someone else crashes their car into the car I'm driving, it's on me. So I much prefer to have the insurance that just covers that.
That's it. And you know what? I mean, even though I really should have known it because I didn't do the track days, I didn't think about it too much. But it's a good friend of ours, a chap called Nick, who you met recently with a Blue Exige. He was involved in a very unfortunate incident on track a year or two ago, where basically somebody piled into the side of him. Their brakes had failed, and luckily he had insurance. But the thing was, it was lucky because even if they'd had insurance, their insurance would have paid for their car,
not his
car. There was a particularly unsavoury incident a few years ago where a guy had an accident, had track day insurance, and the insurance company tried to recover the cost from the other guy involved. And it got very, very messy and very, very nasty, because what happened was, I think they found they did have a legal case, or at least enough of one that they could have gone to court with it. The problem is, if you then found that, if you were told, by the way, if something happens on a track and you accidentally knock somebody's Ferrari, you could be made homeless, like, because we'll sue you.
Yeah.
No one's going to go on a track day.
No.
Like, nobody anywhere. So I think what happened is the whole industry went, can you not do that, please? Because you will kill stone dead the entire industry.
And that wouldn't be good for the insurers at the end of the day, because then no one's buying track day insurance.
I actually have had track day insurance the sum total of 1 times, and it was, funnily enough, when I had a Caterham.
All right.
I got a Caterham 620S loaned to me by the lovely people at Caterham. And I asked if I could take it on track. And generally the rules of press cars are, a lot of them are actually okay with you taking it on track. But if you do that, you have to arrange your own insurance policy.
Yeah.
And so for the most part, I just don't do it because it's just pointless. It's just risk. And like you say, the excess was 10% of the car, which was 6,000 quid, which I felt really aggrieved at, because I was like, it's a Caterham. Which bit of it do you think is worth £6,000? I joked with somebody, I said, if I do have an accident, I'm going to reverse out and go back in again just to get my money's worth. Obviously, that is a joke. Yes, insurance companies that are watching, famously lacking a sense of humour. So, a little while back, I had an idea, and it was effectively the real-world response to your question. What is the perfect track day? And I spent a long time thinking about it, and I realised I've been thinking about it all wrong. Because I think when we think of our perfect track day, you think first of the track, then you think of the car you're going to take. But I realised I had a bit of a miniature epiphany, like an epiphanet, you know. The same thing as when we went over to Andorra and when we went to Europe before that. The journey's really what you're doing. You know, the destination is really where it's at, and the people that you're with. The car ultimately is incidental.
Yep.
Now, of course, on track it's a little bit different. I did recently drive my friend's VW Up on track, and can confirm, in standard guise, not even a GTI, by the way, not really very track oriented. Hilarious, not great on track. I realised that the perfect track day is one that's just got all my friends on it. So I decided, I did this last year and I did it this year, to hire Blyton Park, which is a really cool, I think really underrated track.
Yep.
I don't know if it's the Midlands or not, it's near Doncaster, some sort of Yorkshire-ish way. And it's not particularly big, but it's also quite narrow, which makes it kind of fun. It feels to me like a little bit of favourite B road type thing. Reminds me of the roads around here.
But still quite technical.
Yeah, still very technical. And it's quite a great leveller because whether you've got a car with a lot of power or more handling bias, like there's bits of the circuit that play to the different car strengths. The circuit's actually owned by Ginetta. Did you know at one point McLaren were thinking of buying it?
Oh, really?
Yeah. And in fact, if you look at some really early stuff with McLaren from like the 12C days, there are quite a few videos like filmed at Blyton because there were sort of rumours they were going to go and buy it. But yeah, it's owned by Ginetta. And effectively, you can just rent it for you and a bunch of friends. So that's what I did. And they run what they call the club day format. So you can have 24 cars there maximum. You have roughly 6 cars on track at a time. And we split the cost between us. It winds up at about 200 quid, give or take. And it was just the best day ever.
Oh, it was very good. Very good. And actually, for the most part, because there were so few people there, maybe there was 2 or 3 people on track at any one time. There were a couple of times I had the whole track to myself. Yeah. Or if I didn't have it to myself, whoever else was on track was on the other side of it to the point where I didn't even know that they were there. Yeah. It was absolutely fantastic. And obviously, because everyone kind of either knows you or knows each other, the level of respect on the actual track was fantastic. You know, people just got out of the way if you were quicker than them, or you got out of the way if they were quicker than you. No egos were involved. And yeah, it was just a really good experience. Not a single red flag for the whole day. So the track sessions did not have to stop for anything except for lunch and the end of the day, which might have involved me exceeding the noise limit slightly.
Yeah, I was on the second time around. But yeah, and that's the thing I loved about it is like suddenly when you know everybody, it changes the dynamic completely because now you're coming up to a corner and you see a GT3 coming up to you, rather than going, oh my God, who the hell is that blasting up behind me? You go, oh, that's Brian in his GT3. Like, oh, that car's so cool. You pull over and you're like, yeah. And I took the F12 round once and basically you could see people like see, because on the straights it's very, very quick. And it's half decent in the corners. And you'd see people sort of like just crack their window open just a little bit so they could hear it going past. And we were all swapping passenger rides with each other. So you're getting to go out in people's cars. And we had everything from an MX-5 to a Pista.
Yep.
And there was a chap there with a 400 odd brake aerial Atom.
Yep.
Yeah. And everybody got on. Like you said, there was not a single stern word, not a problem, not an incident. The weather was glorious, which really helped both times. And everybody just got on.
Yep.
And it was just fantastic.
And how you doing? It's the Fox. We've been at James's track day today, and it's been absolutely awesome.
But this is the sort of track day you can, just do a few laps and come in and, take it a bit easy when you need to. And it's got better and better through the day.
It's nice to do a kind of twisty, kind of brake heavy circuit.
It was an awesome day. Everybody's having a great time, driving fast, being safe and having good fun for James's birthday, which is the most important thing.
And I've now made this a bit of a ritual. I'm going to do this every single year. But I'm also thinking about maybe expanding it a little bit and making it a bit of a sort of, added bonus, shall we say, for Radiator Arms and JayEmm and Sports and Touring fans. So if you'd like to come and join us on track, again, email us on landlord@theradiatorarms.com. But there are going to be some quite strict requirements for it, which is mostly that we know you and you're decent and you're nice and everything else, but we're looking at ways we can sort of open it out and do it and basically give that experience that we had, but to other people. And there is a reason I'm already thinking about another track day, because normally it is my one track day of the year and I'm very happy and I enjoy it and I love it, and then basically it's like, right, cool, same time next year, lads. Only, my friends did a thing. When did you first hear about this?
Well, because I missed out the night before the actual track day, but everyone was having dinner the night before, and I think a few of them were having a few drinks as well in the hotel before the track day. And, well, James, you spotted a car that you took a liking to, didn't you?
Yeah, well, basically, this is my own fault. This is entirely my own fault, although also entirely Chris's fault. We were driving up and I had originally wanted to try the Scuderia on track because it's actually, and this sounds really, I am a fool, I will accept this. The Scuderia is the one Ferrari I've done a big European road trip in, the stripped out hardcore track car, and it's the only one I haven't taken on track.
Yes. The 550 went on track pretty much in the first couple of weeks.
550 went on track first week I had it. Yeah, that was a stupid idea. And the F12's been on track a couple of times, once with Ferrari and then once last year for the private day. And I wanted to get the Scuderia finally on track. I wasn't sure whether it was going to meet the noise regs or not.
Does that mean the time that I took it on Silverstone, even though it was just parade laps, does that mean that's the only time the Scuderia has been on track?
No, because Ben also got to drive it around Brands Hatch for the parade lap.
But you have never driven the Scuderia on track.
I've never driven my Scuderia around.
Oh, man.
Not ever. Not once.
That's tragic. Okay. And of course, that was the car you were going to bring, right?
That was the car I was going to bring, and nothing really went wrong with it. It was just off for its service, and as is always the case, there are a couple of things that I wanted to get done with it. We had to order some parts. Ferrari then went on summer holiday, and the parts just didn't turn up in time, which I thought, okay, this is frustrating, but you know what? Not a disaster. I'll just take the F12 again. Because from the off, my plan wasn't really to drive my car all that much. My plan was to do a couple of sessions and then mostly passenger with other people and just enjoy the day. You know, I get great enjoyment just seeing people coming in and, you know, a big smile on their face. Last year we had another friend of the channel, Tom from Project 40 Cars. He brought his partner along who had never been out on track before and was quite happy just to sit there in her chair and read a book and, you know, let Tom enjoy the day. And a few people offered to take her out. She says, no. But, you know, I think, was it Chris or you that sort of said, no, you should
Chris.
It's always Chris, isn't it?
Yes.
Why am I surprised? I shouldn't have even had to ask that question. Anyway, Chris organised it. I think, did she go out with you first? Because Ant was very, very sensible, taking it nice and easy in the R8. So you did some nice, gentle laps, and she did very, very well. So you sort of, you know...
I built the pace up progressively,
yeah,
and I just said, tell me to slow down, and she didn't. So I pretty much got to my maximum pace for the day.
There you go. So, and she came in, survived, absolutely fine. Then I think she did go out with Tom, and he had this Z3 that year. A few hours later, and I see her going out in the supercharged Atom, or the turbocharged Atom, whatever it was, which has got wings on it and everything, and this is a nuts car. And I looked and I was like... oh no, oh no. That to me is like somebody that's like, had a bit of fun in the paddling pool, is now like, right, I'm going to jump in the ocean.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is either going to go really well or spectacularly badly, and he's going to have a very awkward drive home. So I was so nervous. So more nervous than driving my car on track, right? And she came back in, just grinning ear to ear. It's so good to see. Like, it just gives me so much joy. So yeah, so my F12, unfortunately, this year, the day before the track day, or the day before I was due to go up for the track day, I wound up doing some stuff for the Sporting Bears, the charity, and on my second passenger ride of the day, my alternator belt let go, which is very, very poor timing, although I suppose better it did it there than on the track. And so... I was effectively without a car, which is why I wound up taking a VW up around the track. On the way up, I also started thinking, do you know what? I really do enjoy doing this track stuff. And I think maybe I've misjudged it entirely. And I should, you know, give it a go again. And I should take my learnings of the last decade and not go and buy what is, let's be honest here, Billy Big Bollocks, all the gear, no idea, supercharged M3. What I should instead buy is the smallest, lightest, cheapest thing that can still do a lap and hold together, which allows you as a driver to really learn. And of course, you know, what you want to do is just straight line speed, easy. Corner speed is the thing you need to build
braking
up.
and entry, yeah.
Right. So, and I actually found this when I did motorbike stuff. On slower bikes, I was much faster. You know, because then you realise you've got to carry that speed, you've got to work with it. It's all about the handling, the balance, the cornering, the line, everything. Whereas on a big bike, you go, brrr, and, you know, that's not how it works, but you know what I mean. So I just went on eBay, typed in track car, sought lowest to highest, The first thing that came up was a Citroen C2 VTS, for which I think there was actually a championship. It might still be. Right. And they just basically stripped it out and done some basic things with it. And and I remembered from one of my sessions at Donington being hounded by one of the Enduro cars, if you remember those. They did a championship for the original Ford Ka. And yeah, when you're in a 600 horsepower M3, seeing one of those closing in on you in a bend is like, blimmin' heck, like that's impressive, that little, they were awesome. So the Citroen was cool. There was also a couple of Clios, like the 182, 172 generation, which was sort of one of my sort of, first thoughts. They also had, I think it was a first generation Mini Cooper S, which I think is also quite a cool track car because they handle really well. Loads of parts available for them. Yes, the interiors fall apart, but that's okay because you're going to strip it out and chuck it in the bin anyway.
Yep.
Then I saw it. There was a Rover 100 called the Rover 100R, very optimistically. And this is a thing built by a company called Talon Sports Cars, who are no longer around. And so for those viewing, I'll put a picture on screen. And for those listening, if you don't know what a Rover 100 is, it's just a facelift of the 1990s Metro. It's a pretty lazy facelift. Yeah, it's just a Metro.
Yeah. From a distance, you think, oh, it's a Metro. Oh, no, it's a Rover 100.
Yeah. It started life as a Rover 100 Ascot with a 1.1 litre engine making a mighty 59 horsepower.
Ooh.
It now has a 1.8 litre K-Series, which allegedly makes 180 horsepower. It's the VVC, so from factory it does make 160. It's got a 5-speed PG1 gearbox, which would be the one it would have in like an MG ZR, that sort of thing. It's got a limited slip differential. It has a bunch of spare wheels that offer a Metro GTI. It's got the brakes of a Metro GTI. It's got a fiberglass bonnet with a big vent in it, fiberglass rear tailgate, Perspex rear and side rear windows, stripped interior, very dubious bucket seats, harnesses that look like they might work, and it even came with a trailer. And I looked at it and I just thought, I love everything about that. Because it just looks like the sort of car where you're like, yeah, that probably weighs about 800 kilos. So with some proper tyres on it and some heat in them and a limited slip diff, it can probably do things that nobody thinks it can do. And with the cage in it, it might even have some structural rigidity, which you'd hope it has, because it's, I think, Euro NCAP's lowest rated car they tested that year.
Wow.
Got 1 star.
Yep, Death Trap comes to mind, but
Yeah,
carry
exactly that. Anyway, I looked at it. At the time, bidding was up to about 700 or 800 quid. And I thought, that's brilliant. I just love that. But I got no money at the minute. I've got lots of projects going on at the minute. I'm building the Cayman. The S2000 needs more money thrown at it. Like there's, I got the BX as well as getting near done. Like it's, hey ho. I then go to drinks with these guys in the evening. We're all sat there, there's about 8 or 9 of us, and we're all just, talking car war stories and things. And I was basically saying about how I was looking at these different track cars and things, and I was talking about these cars I found. And I showed them this blooming Rover. And they all fell in love with it. They all absolutely fell in love with it, because basically it's just adorable. Mm-hmm. Like it's just like the ugliest dog in the pound, like you can't help but love it. So they were already, and I said, look, I would have a go at it myself, but like budget is beyond me. Even I think the guy had a buy it now price of about $3,000, and it comes with spares and the trailer and everything. And I said, look, I would go for it, but one day. Anyway, so Chris started looking at it with lusty eyes. Our friend Cal, who had the Crazy Atom, he started looking at it with lusty eyes. Our friend Nick with the Exige, he started looking at it with lusty eyes. And all the guys were talking about it. Chris then winds up phoning the guy to see if maybe he could possibly, go and look at it and get it actually brought up to Blyton the very next day. And at this point, I just went, I don't know, because they're all trying to talk me into buying it, and I was like, no, I cannot. It is beyond me. And I've got Chris, who is a financial advisor. I've got Dom, who is my accountant, and they're both telling me that I should do it. And it's like, well, look, I'm with my partner. I'm like, look, hey, darling, like the financial advisor and the accountant both think it's a sensible idea. And so Chris was talking about it. And I said, look, if you want to buy it, I might be able to help you out with it, but in a bit. Anyway, we do the track day, everything goes lovely. He then calls later the guy, and it turns out he's only about 2 hours away from where we live anyway. So he'd arranged to go and see the car and potentially buy it. And I think I screwed things up for him, because I wasn't supposed to go, but I had nothing to do that evening, and I felt bad about him travelling a couple of hours to go and look at a car on his own. Mm-hmm. So our friend Steve, who has a truck that can tow stuff, was going to go over, and if they bought it, presumably then tow it back. And I'd said to him, look, you can leave it in my driveway for a bit and work out what you're going to do with it, because it's not MOT, it hasn't been for a little while, and et cetera, et cetera. So we go over, we have a look at it, this car is on his driveway, and it's sat there, and I'm just basically standing back and just being like, yeah, blimey, that is quite fun and hilarious and everything, and there's all these spare parts, and the guy was even offering to throw in a free strimmer with it as well. Yeah, don't ask. I don't know.
Is that to cut all the grass that's grown into the car?
The best thing as well, for those that are listening, is it's in that same red that every Rover, that every old person in the 90s ever had. Like, I swear they only had one colour. Like, that was it. So anyway, so Chris is looking at it, and he's doing his classic financial advisor thing, and basically sort of beating the guy up on price and whatnot. And, and to be fair, selling cars, especially cars like that on eBay, is an absolute nightmare, because what you get is people, getting drunk, bidding on them, and then never turning up. And eBay don't do much about it. So he agreed a price with the guy, asks me to come into the house just to run a car vertical and check the car, make sure the paperwork is all correct and everything. And then basically he tells me, right, well, you need to put your address on the V5. To which my response was basically, you cheeky devil, you want me to get the parking fines and everything sent to my house as well, do you? Because it didn't enter my mind that they were buying it for me.
I found out the morning of the track day, where Chris basically told me what was going on, how everyone was conspiring to buy you this thing. I'd already doubled up with Will to buy you a gift, an electric guitar, which was presented on a previous episode.
And I was already very much quite emotional and happy about it, because, I'm old now, I'm in my 30s.
Yep.
I don't expect presents from anyone.
Yep.
It's certainly not of value,
Yep.
because, also we're old, we can go and piss around and do stuff with each other, whenever we want, wherever we want, we can just go and do stuff. There's a benefit of being old.
Yeah, but that's what makes it nice to get you stuff, see? But I'd already topped myself out on that, so I was like, right, you guys, I can't help with the car, but I will keep your secret. So it was about a week later, we were recording an episode of the podcast, I think the one with where we give you the guitar. And
it was the day after.
Oh, it was the day after,
It was actually, I got the guitar and the car on the same day.
That's right. And before the podcast, though, Jay said, don't tell Will about the Rover. And I'm like, what does he mean? What exactly does he mean about the Rover? What does he know? What does he not know? I was like, what? And he was like, the Rover, the thing with Chris. I said, oh, yeah, I heard Chris and you were talking about some car you liked. And then I just kept my mouth shut the rest of the time, because I was like, I knew that they pretty much already arranged to get this car.
Yeah, because my thinking was, what we actually did, so let you into the inside of how this works. We actually recorded this episode once already, but with Will. However, I wasn't particularly happy with how it went. And then this happened afterwards. And in it, we talked to Will, who has never done a track day in his entire life. I think basically just not stepped foot on track. And at that point in time, I was fairly certain, because this was the day after the track day. You guys had already just blown me away with the guitar, which honestly was just incredible. And then that night, I was fairly certain that Chris was going off to go and buy Satan's Metro, right? And yeah,
Great name.
I'm thinking of it the Madtro.
Yes, the Madtro. I like it.
So I thought, because Will loves a bit of old British shonk, right? And I thought, what better way to get Will out on track than in this Metro, right? So that's why I was saying to you, like, don't tell Will about this Rover, because I couldn't remember if you knew or didn't know, if we mentioned to it or what. So basically, we've got some sort of 1970s farce going on where you're trying to keep quiet that they're actually buying this car for me. I'm trying to keep quiet that I think Chris is buying the car for himself. Poor old Will, of course, is in the middle, knows absolutely nothing about anything. And then, yeah, basically, so I'm stood on this driveway on the outskirts of Peterborough, having just been told that these guys have clubbed together and bought me a car. So I'm basically nearly crying on some stranger's driveway in the middle of nowhere, stood next to this old Rover, which is now on my driveway. So yeah, we have already booked it a track day. I'm not going to say when and where because I don't want to let anybody down. But the next plan is Will does now know about it. We are going to try and get it MOT'd because it hasn't been MOT'd for about 4 years. And although it does come with a trailer, which is a bit dubious, I have nothing to tow it with. And I don't like trailers as a general rule anyway. I think they're stress and hassle.
Just get a tow bar put on your F12 and be fine.
Yeah, if I could, I would. So basically, to be fair, it's so light that I'm pretty sure I can get some roof rails for something else and just drive it on top of something else.
Probably.
So basically, there is now technically the Radiator Arms Executive VIP Transport is the Rover 100R.
I'm looking forward to seeing that on track. So that's his motivation for running another track day sooner rather than later. And I think the best bit about any track day for me is, like you say, is the people. Even if it's a track day that you've paid to just be at and you don't really know anybody there, how they act on track is everything to me. But it's even better if when you come off track, you end up talking to people, learning about their cars, learning about what they've done to their cars, their track experience, maybe getting to go out for some passenger laps and experience lots of different cars. And that for me is the best part of those days. So if you want to experience that too, as we said before, drop us an email at landlord@theradiatorarms.com.
Yeah, and if you can't make our day, and if you just want to sort of go and see what the day is about, remember, just about every track day, more or less in the world, you can just get into for nothing. The bit that costs you money is going out on track. And a lot of these companies, if you just get in touch with them and say you just want to come along as like a social thing, you'll probably be able to buy a passenger wristband for very little money. Go along, make some friends.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good shout. Actually, at Brands Hatch, I actually did that once. I went along and just paid, I think it was like 25 quid for or 35 quid for a passenger wristband. It just means you got to sign on. I think they gave me a helmet as well for the day. And I got to go out passenger in a couple of people's cars, which was really good fun. And that was the total cost. But you don't even need to be doing that. You can just go down there just to learn more about the day, speak to a few people. And generally speaking, I found most people at these events are more than happy to talk to people who are interested in getting involved in driving on track at these types of experiences.
Yeah. So if it's something you've been thinking about doing for a while, get down there, do it, take your time, take it easy. End of the day, just enjoy it. Don't put yourself under any pressure, and hopefully you'll be able to enjoy another aspect of this wonderful tapestry that is the world of motoring. So from us, we want to say a big thank you for listening to the Radiator Arms once again. Don't forget, we are always here on YouTube first on Monday at 7 o'clock in the morning, followed a week later at the same time on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, and various corners of the dark web. So from us, it's a simple thank you and goodbye.